Welcome back to another episode of Whiskey and Wine. Sorry about the clap. Forgot how loud those are. But today we are talking about blind tastings. If you've been following us for any amount of time, you've probably seen me talk about blind tastings. Heather and I did a blind tasting. We've actually done 3 different blind tastings at this point. We've also thrown 2 or 3 different parties where we did blind tastings. So it's one of my favorite things to have a blind tasting. So I wanted to help you guys out, talk to you about how to throw your own blind tasting. If you want to just do it by yourself, do it with your partner or with a friend, you both want to do it, you just want to have one person do it, or if you want to go do it with a group of friends somewhere else. I'm going to try to help you out, so let's get into it. So the first thing to note is that there's really 2 different types of blind tastings. People will call them both blind tastings. Just for this, and for sake of argument, I'm going to call one the half blind and the other is going to be the full blind. What a full blind tasting is, you have no idea what's in your glass, what's in the lineup. You don't know what's there. You just know, hey, this is whiskey or this is wine. You don't know what's there. And then the half blind is when you know that there are 10 whiskeys that you and your friends selected, or 10 wines that were selected, whatever it may be, and you know which bottles are there. You just have no idea what order they're in. Or you might know, hey, this was selected from this group of 50 wines at this bar. I'm going to try to figure out which one of these 50 it is. That's a half blind because you still know the selection pool that you pulled from, but you don't know what got pulled. Full blind, you have no idea how big or small the pool was. So knowing those two kind of helps with what I'm going to talk about next. So when you go in to do a blind tasting, there are really 3 different methods of going through it. You can either do it to test yourself, you can do it to try to figure out what you like, you can also do it to learn. So if you're doing it to try to figure out what you like, I really recommend doing a full blind if you can, or if you can't really do that, get a glass that is completely blacked out. Whether that is a blacked out wine glass, blacked out wine glass, or blacked out Glencairn, whatever it may be, try to get something like that because you want to remove as much of your preconceived notions of that bottle as you can. You might have someone who says, I know I don't like light bodied reds, but you give them a light bodied red within that glass and like, oh, this is really good. It tastes dark, it's spicy, it's kind of dry. I like this. And then at the end, they find out it's a light bodied red, and now their horizons just opened up. So that's the first one. It's just trying to figure out what do you like. So when you do that, go ahead, go through your tasting, write down what you like, what you thought about it, and then remember that it's all personal. You might really like something and someone else might not. The next is going to be testing yourself. Actually, before we do testing, let's talk about learning. This is pretty fun. It's something I've recently started doing where I will have Heather grab either a wine or a whiskey and have her pour it and not tell me what it is, and I'll try to figure it out. I do know where it came from, and I know that it came from like our stock, so I know what's there. So it does give me some knowledge of the pool. So half blind, not a full blind. It's a fun way to start learning, though. And then if you're going to actually do the next step of trying to figure out what's in the glass and test yourself, that's when it's nice to have obviously a clear glass because you want to be able to look at it. You want to be able to swirl it and see how it reacts, figure out the color. Because things like that are going to help you figure out what varietal it is or what type of whiskey it is. Is it finished? Is it not finished? Did it come from a hot climate, cool climate? How long did it age for? Lots of different things are going to come from looking at the liquid in your glass. Which brings me to the next part, how to actually do your blind tasting. So when you're doing really any tasting, you should be walking through these 5 steps. You should be looking at it, smelling it or nosing it, tasting it or mouthing it, as some people say, writing it down and thinking about it, and then discussing it. So initially, when you get either your wine or your whiskey, you want to look at it to see how is it moving? What color is it? All of those things are going to help you know what type of liquid is in your glass. From there, you want to go to the smell. And when you smell it, you want to take some time with it. Really don't shove your nose in there, but really get into it, smell it, see if you can start to pull some things out of it. And if you have a smell that's just like, ooh, this triggers this memory, write that down and then try to work into Why did I think that? So you could say, hey, it reminds me of summer at camp. Okay, why did it remind you of summer at camp? Oh, it reminded me of the playground and the wood chips. Okay, why did it remind you of the wood chips? Oh, they were cedar wood. Okay, so you're getting cedar out of this. There you go. Next up, you go to taste it. Same thing. You want to go through that. What does this remind you of? What notes are you getting? And it's nice to have a some sort of a sheet for referencing, whether it is a aroma wheel or something like that to kind of trigger some thoughts. I've seen this happen many, many times where you go to taste something, and as soon as you're trying to describe what you're tasting, all thoughts are just gone. It happens, and I really don't understand why it does happen, but it does happen. So having a or tasting wheel, aroma wheel, something like that is really useful. You can find a ton of those resources online. If I remember to, I'll try to link some down below. But from there, you're going to move over to your thinking and try to figure out, okay, why did this taste like this? What could it be? Or did I like it? Did I not like it? And then you get to discuss that with someone else. I will say if you're doing something and you're trying to rank things personally, don't take into consideration too much how other people are tasting it because they might be getting toasted marshmallow and you might not be. And that's just fine. That's your palate. So this is your ranking and your tasting. If you're trying to actually figure out what's in the glass, this is a little bit more beneficial. So, real quick, I want to talk about the general preparation that you want to go through when you are setting up a blind tasting, either yourself or for other people, or just going to do a blind tasting like at a whiskey lounge or a wine lounge. Before you do your tasting, you want to make sure you don't have anything on that's super pungent or smelly. So, cologne or perfume, hand sanitizer, lotion that has a really strong smell to it. Try to avoid that. And then if you're eating something beforehand, try to avoid anything that's, again, super pungent. So, something that has a ton of garlic, onion, or something super spicy. Anything that's going to linger on your palate or distort how you're tasting, try to stay away from those before you do your tasting. Now, if you're going to be hosting a tasting, you want to make sure that you have obviously everything set up for the blind, but it's also good to have palate cleansers, water, spit bucket, dump bucket, anything like that as well, just like you would in a normal tasting. Obviously, it's pretty easy to have a tasting set up for you or to set one up for other people. They're just going to pour some things, hide the bottles, and then you're going to try to do the tasting, try to figure out what's there. It does get a little bit trickier when, say, two people want to do the blind tasting, or you have to do or you have to do a blind tasting by yourself. I'm going to talk first about how to do it by yourself, and then we'll talk about how you can do a blind tasting with your partner or with a friend or something like that. So if you're going to do one by yourself, there's 3-ish ways that are pretty easy. Number one is going to be going to a wine store. So this is for wine specifically. And if it is slow or you have a good relationship with the attendant, you can ask them to pick out a bottle of wine in a certain category under a certain price point, put it in the bag. Don't look at it. They don't tell you what it is. You buy it, you go home, pop the cork while it's still in the bag, and pour it. That's one way to do it. Another way is going to be if you have some bags like this, or you can actually buy these on Amazon that actually have the numbers on them. And you can also buy, obviously, these little guys on Amazon. You can label them. And just take 10 bottles of wine or 10 samples that are labeled and put them somewhere and forget about them. So once you've forgotten about them and you don't remember what's in what bottle, grab one and then you can do your blind tasting because you don't know what's in there and you get to find out when you're done. If you do these little guys, make sure you keep track of what A, B, C, D, or E is somewhere. It'd be very sad if you forgot to do that and then you just don't know what you're drinking and you're never going to figure it out. So make sure you write it down somewhere if you are doing like these little guys. Or even if you're doing these, it might be good to know, hey, one is this, but also you still have the bottle so you can just take a look at it. Another method I've seen people do is where they'll pour the glasses, they'll walk away, they'll come back, they'll mix them up, walk away, come back, mix them up, and they have them labeled on the bottom what they are. Personally, I don't think that would work for me. I would be thinking about it the whole time, or even if I went and did something else, I'd still probably be able to recall, oh, I signed A to Michter's, B is New Riff. So I don't do that method. But if you're someone who forgets things easily, you could try that. The last one is probably my personal favorite. If you go to a wine bar or a whiskey bar, you can always just ask the bartender, hey, can you pour me something random? And I'm going to try to do a blind tasting with it and see if I can figure it out. Don't do this if they are slammed or if you don't really know them that well. Do it somewhere that you've been a regular at for a little bit. Now, for two people and you both want to do the blind tasting, obviously, if you did something like this, you can still just do this and run with it. Or if you want to do it a little bit quicker, what you can do is you can have your glasses lined up and you can have someone come in and pour something into each of the glasses, label them on the bottom so you don't know, you can't see the label, but you know it's like, hey, this is A, this is B, this is C, this is D. And then have the other person come in, mix them up into a random order, come back, and you can try them. Obviously, this person knows the order, this person knows what's there, but you don't know what's in what glass exactly. That's probably the easiest way to do it if you have two people that want to do a blind tasting together. You don't have a ton of time to set it up, a ton of time to set up five different ones in these little guys or set these guys aside and forget about them for 5, 6 months or whatever it may be. Easiest way, label the bottoms, have one person pour, have one person mix it, and then go through your tasting. The last one is going to be if you have some friends and you all want to do a blind tasting together and you just want to have almost a bottle share, have each person at the party bring a bottle with them, line up however many glasses you have one person go into the room, pour their bottle into each glass, and then they hide their bottle, have the next person go in, and so on and so forth. So one person will know, hey, this is mine. Obviously, I know what this is, but all the rest, you're going to have no idea. You could also, again, have someone else go in and mix them up so you don't know what's in what glass exactly until you look at the bottom and go, hey, this was E. What was E, guys? And you can try to figure it out from there. So that is a very quick, not too nitty gritty rundown of how to run a blind tasting, how to host it yourself, run one by yourself, whatever it may be. But remember that when you're doing these blind tastings, when professionals even do these, they get them wrong. So don't take yourself too seriously when trying to test yourself and see if you can figure out what you have. I mean, I have all of these whiskeys, and there's a lot of people who have a lot more whiskey than me. I have trouble figuring out, hey, was this about Balcones? Was this New Riff? Who was this? It's fine. It's fun. Whiskey and wine is supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be approachable. Just a liquid that we're all enjoying together. So if someone's like, oh, you need to be able to figure out what this is right off the bat, tell them to calm down. Just relax. Don't take yourself too seriously. Don't stress out. I hope this helped you out, and I hope you have fun at your next wine tasting.